So recently we received some really wonderful teachings from Geshe Dado on compassion. And in one of his talks, he mentioned a practice of the 6 recollections. So these are recollections of the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, ethics, giving, and the deities or devas. And this practice is found both in the Pali tradition, like we find in Southeast Asia, and the Sanskrit tradition, which is our tradition. But it's not so easy to find information about them. And recently I came across an explanation in a Pali sutra called Uposatha Sutra, which is in the Anguttara Nikaya, and there's probably numerous other references as well. And in this particular sutra, the Buddha is giving advice on how to observe uposatha. So uposatha refers to days of the lunar cycle, like the full moon day, the new moon day, which is today. Today is a new moon day. And various religious groups, even before the Buddha, would do certain practices on these days. And this became part of the Buddhist tradition as well. So, like, for example, monastics gather and read their precepts and purify any transgressions and so forth. And so in this sutra, the Buddha mentions some ways of observing the uposatha days that are not so ideal. For example, he says, like a cowherd who thinks about food. Today I ate this food, and tomorrow I will eat this food and that food. And so such a person thereby passes the day with greed and longing in his mind. This is not of great fruit and benefit, nor is it extraordinarily brilliant and pervasive. So that's not a great way to spend uposatha. And then he goes on to explain a better way to observe uposatha, namely practicing these recollections of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and so on. And he says doing such practices will bring peace and joy into our mind and also cleanse the defiled mind. So here is his explanation. He says, a noble disciple recollects the Tathagata thus. The Blessed One is an arhat, perfectly enlightened, accomplished in true knowledge and conduct, fortunate, knower of the world, unsurpassed trainer of persons to be tamed, teacher of devas and humans, the enlightened one, the Blessed One. When a noble disciple recollects the Tathagata, his or her mind becomes peaceful, joy arises, and the defilements of the mind are abandoned. So you probably noticed that the words in the sutra are similar to a prayer that we recite before teachings, to the teacher, the endowed transcendent, and so on and so on. So that particular prayer comes from the Sanskrit tradition, and it is almost identical to these words. And also in volume 4 of the books that Venerable is working on, which is called Following in the Buddha's Footsteps, starting on page 61 of that book, there's quite a bit of explanation of these different terms, what each one means, describing the Buddha's qualities. So they're very rich in meaning and very inspiring. So today, since we don't have a lot of time, I'll just talk about a few of them, and we'll save the rest for another BBC. So I invite you to try to pay attention while I'm talking about these qualities of the Buddha and just see what kind of effect it has on your mind. Okay, so one of the qualities is one thus gone, which is an English translation of the Sanskrit term Tathagata. And we encounter that term quite a lot, like the prostrations to the 35 Buddhas. So each of the 35 Buddhas is referred to as a one thus gone or Tathagata. And apparently this term was already in use even before the Buddha. It's a term used for a person who's perfectly accomplished and realized. And so in the case of the Buddha, Buddha is a one thus gone because he's someone who has gone to nirvana, the state of complete liberation from all suffering and the causes of suffering, in the same way that all the liberated ones of the past have gone to nirvana by practicing the 37 harmonies with enlightenment. So that's like the essential practices one needs to do to attain nirvana. So the Buddha did all those practices and he went to nirvana. And also, Buddha has gone to Buddhahood, full awakening, full enlightenment, in the same way that all the Buddhas of the past have gone to Buddhahood by, of course, generating compassion and loving kindness and bodhicitta and the wisdom, realizing emptiness, and then following the path that consists of 10 grounds, 10 bodhisattva grounds, and fulfilling the 10 perfections. So Buddha did all those practices, and in that way he went to full enlightenment, Buddhahood. So that's a bit of explanation of the term one thus gone or Tathagata. And another term is completely and fully awakened one. The Sanskrit term for that is Samyak Sambuddha. So following the Buddha's footsteps says, the Buddha has awakened from the sleep of ignorance and awakens others as well. So I don't know about you, but I'm still very much asleep with ignorance, not seeing the true nature of things and kind of dreaming that everything exists as it appears, truly existing, inherently existing. The Buddha was once in that situation as well, but he woke up with wisdom. And so he emerged from this sleep, this unclarity, this darkness of ignorance. And not only has he awakened, but he strives to help us wake up as well. So he's there, trying to shake us and get us to wake up out of this sleep of ignorance. And furthermore, he comprehends completely and perfectly all phenomena. So we say that the Buddha is omniscient or an all-knowing, which means in every moment, with every mental state, every cognition that the Buddha has, he fully sees all things that exist, all the sentient beings and all the thoughts in our mind, all our emotions, all our experiences, all our past, all the things we did in the past, the karma we created and so on. He also sees the future. So he sees everything, and he sees everything correctly without any distortion, any mistaken ways of seeing things. And he especially sees the inner workings of the mind and the paths to liberation and awakening and their resultant states. So that's the most important thing that the Buddha sees, is he knows how the mind works, how within our mind there are certain factors that bring about suffering, such as our afflictive emotions, attachment, aversion, and especially the main affliction, which is ignorance, not seeing the true nature of things. So he sees how these operate within our mind and lead us to engage in actions that in turn lead to suffering and perpetuation of samsara, cyclic existence. So he has perfect understanding of that. And he also sees the factors within the mind that bring about happiness, both happiness within samsara, like, creating virtue, as well as the causes for getting out of samsara, liberation and full enlightenment. So he's fully aware of those processes and is able to explain them to us so that we can get ourselves out of this situation that we are in. Also, he has attained various qualities that only a Buddha has, such as the 10 powers, the 4 fearlessnesses, and so on. So when we get to volume before, one of these days, we'll have a chance to learn about all those qualities. It goes into great detail with all the different qualities that only a Buddha has. So that will be very wonderful, very inspiring. And his ability to explain the Dharma in a way that is easily understood by whatever audience he speaks to indicates his great knowledge and skill. So that's a wonderful quality of the Buddha as well, that he can teach according to the level of mind and abilities and predispositions of individual people. So he can guide each and every person in accord with what they need to, again, find happiness, liberation, and enlightenment. So these are just a few of the qualities of the Buddha that we can contemplate or recollect. And I think that doing so, even just for a few seconds or a few minutes, can uplift our mind and also bring clarity and joy and peace to our mind. I hope that was your experience. And the Buddha said that doing this also purifies our mind. So that's an extra added attraction, extra bonus. Our defilements will be purified. So I think doing this kind of practice is much more meaningful and beneficial than thinking about food. Although we do need to think about food sometimes, like right now, because it's lunchtime. Thank you.